I think it's time we got to start talking about Texas A&M. The Aggies are for real. I mentioned earlier in the season that I didn't think that Texas A&M would be a playoff contender under Mike Elko in year number 1 because I didn't think that their defense would be good enough to carry their offense at times that wasn't going to be good enough either. But you now look at Texas A&M, and I don't know how, barring a bad stub of their toe, I don't see how they probably don't make the college football playoff at this point. They're at South Carolina versus New Mexico, at Auburn, and home for Texas, the final 4 games of the regular season. They take care of business against South Carolina, New Mexico State, and Auburn. They're going to be in the college football playoff. Because if their 2 losses are to Texas, the final week of the season, and Notre Dame, the first week of the season, Texas A&M is going to get in the college football playoff. Now, I'm a believer in Mike Elko. I thought Mike Elko was a great decision for them, a guy who's going to lead them back to where they want to be. Maybe not that far because they believe that they should be the top job in college football and be this power that we can have a discussion probably in the offseason about um, like all Mike Elko has to do at Texas A&M to be super successful is the things nobody else has done in the last 80 years, but that's a different discussion. Right now, Texas A&M needs to be talked about as a college football playoff team because that's what they are. They take care of business against LSU on Saturday night. A good LSU team. Like I think Garrett Nussmeier might be the best quarterback prospect to go to the NFL draft next year. Again, another discussion for another day. But A&M, all they've done since they played Notre Dame at home is take care of their business, which in college football during the 2024 season has been easier said than done for a lot of schools, right? Like Oregon struggled with Idaho, and Georgia struggled with Kentucky, and Texas struggled with Vanderbilt. And that's after Texas lost to Georgia, and that's after Georgia lost to Alabama, and Alabama lost to Vanderbilt. Ohio State struggled with Nebraska. There are teams, there is no one top dog at the mountaintop right now that makes you go like, oh man, they are flawless. Everybody's got a flaw, which makes the race for the college football playoff and the race for those 4 bye week spots really interesting. But when all you've done is take care of business, that deserves to be commended. Like Texas A&M deserves a pat on the back to say, "Hey, you guys have done what you've needed to do," because when you lose in week 1, it's real easy for that to sour an entire season, or that's easy to fracture a team. It hasn't with Texas A&M. I mean, their backup quarterback comes in yesterday, runs for 3 touchdowns, completes both passes he throws. He throws 70 yards on 2 2 of 2 passing. Let me pull this up. Yeah, 70 yards on 2 of 2 passing. Marcel Reed came in and had a really nice day. Texas A&M is pretty good offensively and really good defensively. I didn't give them enough credit coming into the season for how good they were going to be defensively. They mollywopped Missouri, kept them to 10 points. They held Florida to 20 points, held Arkansas to 17 points, held LSU to 23 points. It's not easy to do. And so we need to talk about Texas A&M as a playoff team because it's trending in that direction. And it's trending in that direction so much that it might not be a foregone conclusion that the Longhorns are either the favorite or even the overwhelming favorite in that final week of the season. Texas A&M controls its own destiny to go to the SEC championship game. So that, coupled with where they are right now defensively and putting enough points on the board offensively, A&M is a playoff contender as it sits right now, and we need to talk about them as such. On the flip side of that, if we are going to talk about Texas A&M being a playoff contender and being viewed as a very good football team, then we need to give Notre Dame the credit for going to College Station and winning that game. And I don't know that they've gotten that credit yet because when you lose to Northern Illinois, it's really easy to forget about the wins. It's really easy to forget about the impressive win that happened in August. But going to College Station, where a lot of people will tell you it's a very difficult place to play and a very difficult place to win, that has to be at the top of Notre Dame's resume and pretty close to the top of best wins of those college football playoff contenders. Does Oregon have a really nice win over Ohio State? Yes. Does Oregon have a really nice win over Boise State? Absolutely. But when you get to those teams that have a loss, Georgia's win over Texas is probably the only win that looks better. I guess you could say Alabama's win over Georgia, but that game lasts for a minute longer. Notre Dame's win over Texas A&M is a big time resume builder. And when the college football playoff rankings come out, I'm really interested to see what happens. We'll probably talk about this tomorrow of what the committee does with Notre Dame. Do they rank them above Texas A&M? Because that will be a telltale sign of how we can look at the playoff rankings going forward. Because if the on the field games matter, Texas has to be ranked below Georgia, right? But then does Alabama have to be ranked above Georgia? There are some semantics and schematics there, but Notre Dame went to A&M and beat the Aggies. Did they then lose to Northern Illinois, and is that a bad loss? Yes, because the Huskies keep dropping games that they shouldn't. So it looks worse and worse every week. But Notre Dame also just beat Navy, and I know that the immediate reaction from an SEC fan is like, well, it's Navy. Navy's undefeated in the top 25. Notre Dame mopped the floor with them, and I can't help but think that if Texas A&M had beaten Navy, or if Georgia, Florida, LSU, Missouri had beaten Navy, it wouldn't be viewed as a like, whoop-de-doo, easy come, easy go. Notre Dame's got some nice wins on their resume, but I don't think we've given them the credit that they deserve for beating a very good Texas A&M team on their home field. You can make all the excuses in the world. It's the first game, new head coach, yada yada yada. Does not matter. Doesn't matter. Notre Dame won the game. And so, if we're going to talk about Texas A&M as a playoff contender, and here we are talking about Texas A&M as a playoff contender, you then need to say, you know what? That's a nice win for Notre Dame in retrospect. It's time to take a look at the Sunday Stiff Arm Trophy update. This is what my Heisman Trophy ballot would look like if I had to submit it today. I don't. One, because I don't have a Heisman Trophy ballot. I'd like one. It'd be nice to have. And then two, it's October. So we got a ways to go, but this is what my Heisman Trophy ballot would look like. I would vote for a Boise State running back, Ashton Jeanty. He had a slow Saturday, the worst game of his 2024 season, or I guess Friday, technically. Not technically, it was Friday. I was wrong. He had a good Friday. It was his worst Friday of the year. He had 133 yards rushing. So when that is your, he had 128 yards rushing, actually, and only one touchdown, which is going to put him off the pace of not breaking Barry Sanders' um, single season rushing record. And yet he's rushed for 1,300 yards and 18 touchdowns for a team that is in the driver's seat to represent the group of five in the college football playoff. So I'll pick Ashton Jeanty because I think he's been the best player in college football. Dylan Gabriel has rocketed up my list. You know what? Give him credit. He had a 4 touchdown performance against Illinois, and I think it's really impressive that when you are number one, and this is not anything new, but when you're number one, you get everybody's best shot. And Oregon handled Illinois' best shot like it was a fly meeting, like a fly swatter meeting a fly. It was not an issue. He throws 4 touchdowns in the wind at Dylan Gabriel. Is the betting favorite right now to win the Heisman Trophy. I would put him behind Ashton Genty on my ballot. And Miami quarterback Cam Ward didn't have the biggest and best game against Florida State. Um, Only 22 of 35 for 208 yards. But Miami's taking care of business. They're 8-0. They, like Texas A&M, should be viewed as a college football playoff team. Even if they don't win the ACC, I think it's getting to that point where Miami is probably looking at, unless they lose twice, potentially even 3 times, depending on what else happens. There's a good chance that they are going to be one of the first 12 teams to make the newly expanded college football playoff. And as long as they stay in that race, it's going to be because of Cam Ward, and he'll be a storyline that will draw eyeballs and attention to the Heisman Trophy ballot. So Cam Ward would be my number 3 right now. Want to hear from you in the comments below. Should Notre Dame be ranked above Texas A&M? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and let's have that conversation. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we are pumping out. If you listen on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.